Brent Faiyaz, a guy we've been talking about more and more last year. Call Me If You Get Lost and the Melodic Blue, Baby Keem featured
Mm.
songs
Oh
with
yeah.
him on it. And, I don't know if I would say I was like super looking forward to this drop, but I was aware of it. And so this is a person who is just like growing in terms of like my own consciousness. And I think in terms of plays, like as someone that doesn't have a ton of output, I mean, he has some big singles at this point, but a couple of like short projects. I think he has one like longer mixtape or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bunch of EPs and tapes, and this is his second album, first since 2017. But like you're
Big
saying,
star.
yeah, he's blowing up fast, and he's an independent artist, and he's about to go number one as an independent artist off this second album, Wasteland. And like you said, just big features, big looks have been coming for a while now. I had the lead single, Gravity, with DJ Dahi featuring Tyler Creator. That was my number two song of 2021. I absolutely love that track. And now we have it here in the album. And you mentioned his feature on Baby Keem. His feature on Lost Souls with Baby Keem is freaking spectacular. He
Yeah, it
steals the whole
is.
song, honestly. And just kind of thinking about like male R&B, we just talked about this last week with Givion's debut album, Give or Take. Brent's a very different side of the coin, but this album, Wasteland, really impressed me because he is someone who has like really clear goals with his music. And he was
Mm.
literally just spelling this out when he was promoting the album. He's saying, I like to keep the listener guessing. When the
And he
song
does.
starts, I don't want you to know where it's going. And I love that. And I
Mhm.
think he really delivers. Not everything's a 10 out of 10, but I think overall he really delivers with this. And it's just really cool to see someone have such an organic, genuine, founded rise on merit with his music. And now it's really going to be paid forward because he's just becoming a gigantic star.
Yeah, and just for those who may be tangentially aware of him, Lost Souls is blew up on TikTok. Another one of those TikTok trends that really took off. The 16 is cold. Um, but yeah, I agree. I think Wasteland is very interesting. I don't know if I loved it as much as you did necessarily, but I was definitely really impressed with not only his vision on this, but just like the execution. And you talk about that, like keeping you guessing. Um, I mean, this is definitely a pretty thoughtful lyrical album, and he's definitely trying
Mm.
to paint, I think, a story here about like I mean, one of the tracks literally called "The Price of Fame," but I think just like how fame can corrupt you, it can impact your relationships, it can make you
Right.
feel just like detached from parts of your life, lead you to some not so great things, but where it ends up by the end, really, I was felt like it was unexpected and really like hit home. Like I usually don't like skits, but I think like the
Yeah.
last two tracks, skit, wake up call, and angel, really just like kind of hammered home what he's going for the album. And I was just like, man, this felt unexpected, like he was going for, but really rewarding as you listen through. So talk to me about like the tracks or the moments on this
Mm.
album that really stood out to you.
Yeah, well, I think, like you said, these skits are very effective in shepherding you through his lyrical goals with this album, and the songs fit that as well. I think the subject matter is not unexpected for any fans of Brent, but in terms of relationships and toxicity within a relationship and just general struggles with that, it's all in line with what people expect from his music, but the storytelling I think is very paramount. However, the other side of the coin, you can still take away an individual track from Wasteland and enjoy it just for what it is and separate it from that general story. Like he's giving you both sides of it. It's a whole narrative within an album, and then it's a bunch of fun songs to just revisit. In terms of the unexpectedness, I think it was maybe the second or one of the first singles he dropped like recently. Obviously the Drake song and the Tyler song have been out a while,
Hmm.
and that song would be Price of Fame. Price of Fame starts off with a very low tempo, distorted pitch on Brent's vocals, and it's a fun song. He still has pretty steady bass on it, and then you hear this like kind of like the ticking of a clock as we're speeding up the tempo of the song, and then you realize that the vocals have actually just been sped up to Brent's actual correct normal pitch. Meanwhile,
Mm.
the production itself is actually sped up beyond where we are at. And like that, I thought that like those first 3 minutes of that song were just like spectacular, like spellbinding shit, honestly. And then 3 minutes in, it flips and it's like this like slower like R&B like outro. I was like, but I think the whole production side in the beginning of that song is really mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I agree. I really love that like early production and just how like as the track starts speeding up, everything just kind of becomes clear until there's like this break from it, like you mentioned, into this like really beautifully sung last like 3 minutes. Um, yeah, what other tracks stood out
Mhm.
to you though? I mean,
Yeah.
I gotta say, at least like lyrically, I think the like stickiest thing to me was probably Jackie Brown. Maybe it's like my relation to the movie, but I think just like that just felt like a song that stood out as like a banger to me on this. Like it's really like stripped back and kind of like spaced out in terms of production, but
Mhm.
it allows him and that like Jackie Brown reference to just kind of like come to mind. You know exactly what he's going for there too.
My old bitch fine like Jackie Brown. And then later on, it's like a classic Brent line: "Leave me here, I'll fuck myself."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I like Jackie Brown a lot. I like Ghetto Gatsby a lot. Flying the whip like I'm Gatsby. Um, then another one I thought was like a classic, like trademark Brent lyric. It's new face, still not Lauren London, but you're still a dime if you ask me. And then later on, he has Alicia Keys rapping. Brent made a reference track for Alicia Keys and was saying how he intentionally wanted a non female rapper to do the rapping for him on this song. Again, something you don't expect to hear. Gotta love it. Um, yeah, I kind of like rediscovered the Wasting Time, the song with Drake on this. I actually think it's like a really kind of like a classic Drake feature, like a classic Drake verse. I really like the subject matter. I think his lyrics really fit what Brent's going for on this. And of course, you have a great quotable of, calculating moves like Beth Harmon, the Queen's Gambit reference.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually just kind of like it felt like a throwback Drake verse for sure. I really enjoyed that. And I mean, you mentioned Gravity being one of the singles. People have probably heard it by now, but that just feels like I don't know, like an extra from Call Me If You Get Lost in like the best way possible. Like it really
Sure.
feels like they're in the same way, but just like the way Brent and Tyler like trade off on that is just really great. And uh it made me go back and listen to Sweet I Thought You Wanted to Dance and just how much I really love that song still. And the whole
Mhm.
album just still rocks. But yeah, I was like, there's worse things you can do than have a track remind you of one of the best albums of last year. So, yeah, this was just really impressive. I think I don't know if it's one of my favorite albums of the year, but it sounds like it might be up there for you.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one of my favorite R&B albums in a long ass time, to be honest. Just because I think there's to make an R&B album this interesting, this giving you this much unexpected material and switch ups and changes, and also delivering bangers as well. It's giving you everything. Like I think that's just really commendable. And I'm just really happy for Brent Faiyaz because again, independent artists progressing to this point as he has in a genuine honest way with just the music being good and people liking him. Um, obviously, you got to be happy about that.
Absolutely. We'll be adding a track or two to our Nostalgia Best of 2022 on Spotify.